What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Wendy Kennedy. Now Wendy is an intuitive empath and channel. Now for more than 2 decades, she's used her gifts and abilities to work with beings in other realms and dimensions, assisting others in recognizing and releasing all patterns and helping them to live more whole and integrative lives. Now the clear and compassionate wisdom shared through Wendy facilitates a shift in perspective from that of separation and limitation to connection and multi-dimensional existence. Now in 1995, Wendy began channeling, working first with her own angelic guides before becoming reacquainted with the 9th Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, whom she primarily channels at her public events and in private sessions. Now in addition to the Pleiadians, she works with beings from Sirius, Lyra and Arcturus, as well as other high-dimensional celestial beings. Wendy Kennedy, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
It's such an honor to have you on. People keep asking me, when's Wendy coming on? When's she coming on? I'm like, soon. It's going to happen soon. People are excited about you coming on, and people love your work as well. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing as well out there, because I can imagine, we were just having this conversation just now off air, that some time ago, even 10 years ago, it wasn't quite the same.
It really wasn't, and it just is exciting, and how things have blossomed in even 5 years. I look around and there are so many people who are talking about spirituality and people who are channeling and connecting with their guides. And, you know, back in the 90s, or I can't even imagine before that, it just was so unheard of and so out there. So it's become more and more mainstream, and it's really exciting to see.
Absolutely it is. And well, let's actually get into your journey as well. That leads kind of directly into that. Well, actually, before I say that, let me just thank you for being one of the channelers, one of the participants right now for the documentary I'm working on called They Call Us Channelers. Thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to see you in Los Angeles as well.
Yes, me too. I'm excited that you're doing this because it sounds like an absolutely amazing project. So.
Well, yeah, and I've always said, and I said this in other vlogs, if it just helps to open up one person's reality, then, you know, it's job done. I've got no, there's no ego to do anything more. I mean, I know it probably will do, but I'm not attached to that. Do you know what I mean?
I do, and you know, I think that's something that so many of us miss, that we don't always know. We think it's impacting one person, but that one person may impact thousands, and so the ripple effect can be enormous. And we have this measure that we think in order for us to do anything, we have to reach millions of people. But if you're reaching one, you don't know what that one can shift. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you. It just kind of makes it make more sense. But I think your work makes a lot of sense to me. I resonate with your work. I really do, and so do so many other people. Even though some of it's quite high, it's digestible though. That's the nice thing about your work. So how did you get to this point? How did the channeling experience start for you? When did you wake up?
It was in the mid 90s, and I started having these visions, and I didn't know what they were. So I started doing some research. I was seeing things in the apartment complex I was living in Chicago at the time. And I thought maybe I was seeing something that was associated with the building. And so I started researching ghosts and past lives, and I came across channeling, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anybody who did it, but I had this feeling inside that it was something that I was supposed to be doing. And so I can remember telling people, I said, I know this sounds absolutely insane, but I know I'm supposed to be doing this thing. And my friends at the time were incredibly supportive. They said, it sounds really fascinating, and if you're able to do it, I volunteer. I'll be your guinea pig. I'm happy to ask you questions. And so I found a couple of books. There really wasn't a whole lot out there. And I was doing a lot of work on myself at the time. I was taking meditation classes and really doing a lot of inner work. And looking back now, I'd already done a bit of that. I studied theater and film, so there was a lot of body work that was involved with that, things that now I know I was accessing past life memories. At the time, I didn't know what that stuff was, but things that were preparing me. And when I started to try to channel, I was having these really visceral responses. My eyes would flutter, it would water, my body would tingle, but I was trying to channel verbally and I couldn't get the words out. So I'd play with it for a while, and then I put it aside, and I'd keep going back to it. And it took me probably about 9 months to a year. And then finally one day I sat down and I knew I was supposed to have a pen and paper, and I started automatic writing. And so it just kind of evolved from there. And it took me about, I don't know, I'd say about 9 months again, before I was hearing the words well in advance of what I was writing. And they said, it's time to put the pen down and start channeling verbally. And at that point, it was much, much easier for that to come out. And once I did that, a whole new set of guides showed up. The Pleiadian Collective is the main group that shows up when I channel publicly. They were waiting for me to channel verbally because they work with tone and sound. And I'm not quite sure what we're doing today, but if the P's come in, I call them the P's for short, they sound different than any of the other beings that I channel because they modulate the frequency. So it just kind of evolved. That was 2 years ago, I think. A little over that maybe now.
Wow, okay. And were there any sort of channelers at the time that inspired you as you were going through your transition from automatic writing to, channeling verbally as well?
There were a couple of people who I had been exposed to. Barbara Marciniak was out there very early on, God bless her, putting this out there and making it very, very mainstream. And then Sanaya Roman, her book Opening to Channel was one of the ones that I utilized. There was another little book that I had that had meditations and visualizations, and for the life of me, I can't find it, never seen it again. I'm trying to think who else was out there. Jalila Starr, she was doing her thing, putting her information out there at the time as well. But really, there weren't a whole lot of people.
No. Did you ever meet Barbara as well? Did you ever meet any of these people?
I didn't. I have met Jalila, but I haven't really caught up with them.
Yeah, well, no, I only asked that because their books are famous. Learning to Channel. So, what was the name of the author there? Sanaya Roman.
Sanaya Roman.
Sanaya Roman. Sorry, Sanaya Roman. Yeah, a famous book. right? And most people that do get into channeling have come across that book, but I think those two people there, they don't do a lot of public interviews. I don't think, well, very rare, do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's for them, it's been more about the material, but that's maybe what they were supposed to do. That was their job. Do you know what I mean? That, yeah.
Well, it certainly woke up a generation, I think. You know?
Yeah.
It was very far-reaching. I think a lot of people, especially with opening to channel, that's the gold standard. They go back to that material. And when you talk about channeling, especially if you talk about the Pleiadians, that's the first name that comes up is Barbara Marciniak.
Yeah, I did write to Barbara Marciniak to be on the documentary, but she told me, thank you for the offer, but I have no wish to be on a documentary. I was like, oh, well, it was blessings to you, do you know what I mean? But would you do an interview as well? But no, I've not written her back yet. I might try to get an interview with her, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I have made contact with her, and I was just grateful for her to write me back all the way in the UK. I wasn't expecting that. And yeah, so, okay. Who are you connecting with now? Is it the same guys that you've been connected with for the past 20 years?
At the beginning, my own angelic guides were the ones that made contact. And I think for most people, when they start channeling, the guides that you initially connect with are not the ones that you're going to work long term with. They're the ones that you're comfortable with, that you feel safe connecting and opening into that new space. And then once you've got that sense of safety and a little bit of that discernment down, the beings that you're meant to work with start showing up. And for me, I work with a being named Ramshi, who is a 12th dimensional original planner. He's kind of a universal architect. So he comes in a lot for my own private and personal stuff, occasionally publicly. Then there's also Corolla, who is also part of his collective. And she has such wonderful, loving, heart-centered energy. It's very interesting to watch people's reactions. She will come in publicly. People either laugh or they cry because it will open your heart. And it depends on what's there. If you've been suppressing a lot of stuff, then all that comes out and you're crying. But, you know, if you're a little lighter, you tend to laugh. You have a light response. So they're around, and really it just depends on the energy that's needed. The Pleiadians usually take point, but there are always other beings who are present and braiding their energy with the Pleiadians. That's kind of how I like to describe it.
Yes.
I can feel the difference. I know that there are other beings present. Sometimes they'll tell me who it is. If it's in the middle of a session, I don't always have an opportunity to stop and ask, but I know that I can feel their energy, so I know it's someone that they're bringing in specifically for the group. And, you know, the Sirians, Orions, Arcturans, Andromedans, Cassiopeians, Lyrans, those are the beings that are kind of showing up for me now, because I've started to work more and more with galactic light codes. And these are codes that they're symbols that represent the language of light. And when I first started channeling, I was getting them, doing the automatic writing, and I kind of put them aside. And about 2 years ago, the guides came to me and they said, it's time to start working with these again. And so I started working more and more with these codes. And what they do is they bypass the traditional language centers of the brain, and they speak directly to you, the being of light, having this physical experience. And they're helping you to kind of realign with your original blueprint. And so we've been doing more of that and the language of light. So once I started to do that, more galactic beings would come in. So it's more than just the P's anymore.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's others that have come onto my show that the channel, let's use the word Pleiadians. But, you know, as you have said previously, you know, the Pleiadian star cluster, I think it's, well, I'm going to get them, hopefully not get the words wrong here, but it's obviously, I think it's a cluster of 750,000 stars, the Pleiadian galaxy. Am I using the right words here?
They tell me there are about 750 stars in the cluster. Yeah.
Okay, not 750,000, yes, 750 stars
yes.
in the cluster. So there's lots of room
it's a big system.
Yeah, it's a big system, right? Some people are unaware of that. So when with multiple people channeling the Pleiadians, there's different vibrations, different frequencies of the Pleiadians, where yours are mainly non-physical, others may be quite physical.
Yes. I think, especially if you're doing a search on the internet, you see that Nordic blonde, it's the standard picture. Those are
Yes.
fifth dimensional Pleiadians. But, the guides always say it's a vast system, it's interdimensional, and there are lots of different species. There are reptilians, there are avians, there are humanoids. So it runs the gamut. And then there are light beings. And the ninth dimensional group, as you said, that I work with, they're beings of light. They don't have physical form. So instead of incarnating to a planet the way we do, they actually align their energy with a star. They align it with a stellar body and the lessons and the wisdom that the star wants to experience. So for them, they align with Alcyon, which is the central star in the Pleiades. And it's all about records and information, which is part of why they're coming through, to share records and information.
Right. Okay. And I guess they have an access to an infinitive source of information, would you say, in a sense?
From our perspective, I think so. They would probably tell you no, because there are things that
Yeah.
they're not accessing because they're within their own game. They're within their own certain level of consciousness. But we partition off our awareness to kind of play a role. And they've got their own role and that limits their access. But they have an awareness that they are part of this collective. They can perceive themselves as an individuated consciousness if they want, but they can also see themselves as source. So they have the ability to shift through that, where we don't. We tend to just simply identify with ourselves as being separate.
Absolutely. Oh no, absolutely, and I guess to them there must be infinitive levels above them to go to for them as well, for them to progress as well.
Yes.
I mean it's difficult to get that in your head. So our progression is to them must be very important. I mean, what we go through must be very important to them. It's not just they're important to us; we're important to them as well.
And that's such a great point, because I think too often people want to give their power away. And they want to say, oh, this being's higher than I am. They must have more wisdom. They must know it all. And that's not always true. They have a different perspective. And the guides are very, very clear about that, because there are things that we teach them that they're learning from. And that's hard for us to grasp because, again, we think we're starting at the bottom and working our way up. But the guides always say we're part of source energy. We're actually at the top at the same time that we're choosing to perceive ourselves as small.
Because, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, that's a great point. Go ahead.
And what they are helping us, or what they want us to understand, is that because we're playing down in this game of emotions, this particular planet has extremes. If you want to learn about emotions, they say Earth is where you go to. They call Earth the planet of emotion. And because we have such extremes, and we have such highs and lows, when we go to that low place, we know just how challenging it feels to be there. And because we really can empathize, we are able to experience compassion in a way that is much more intense than the way that they experience it. Because we have that polarized perspective of ourselves as having been separate, and that pain, that suffering allows us to experience compassion in a deeper way. So as we go through this ascension process, we're learning how to embody that compassion, and that's part of what we teach the universe. And as we go through this, it actually shifts the energy throughout the entire universe. So it's not just about our personal ascension and our planetary ascension. It actually lifts the universal game to another level.
Great points. Absolutely, absolutely, and that will resonate with so many people. What you were saying there. Sorry, I was almost butting in there. I was just so excited with what you were saying, because kind of what you're saying as well leads on to our progression is just so important to them. Because as you said, we come from that same source as where they come from. They're just vibrating at a higher rate than we are right now because we've had to come down here to this lower rate density. But really, if everything is one, past, future, and present, we are already living out at that God source right now. We're already living out everything, can't we? If there is no linear time as a sense. So there's some things we're not supposed to get because we're here to have the human experience. Isn't that really important, that we don't leave our bodies just yet with all this information? That's not the point of my show neither. My point of my show is to ground us back into the present moment now, as that's just as important as this teaching information that you're bringing through, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that's also a challenge for many people because as they start to awaken, they don't want to be in their body. They're like, I want out of here. Get me out.
You can't blame them. Yeah.
Yeah. But really, we're here to learn how to embody that connection to source energy. You know, we always think of home as being outside. You know, I want to go home. I want to be off this planet. But the game was to bring home here, to embody that sense of connection. And you have to be in the body. You have to really ground and embrace life and enjoy being here. I love the guides when they challenge people, when people say, I want this gift, or I want this ability, or I want to be able to, you know, bilocate or read minds or whatever it is. They say, well, why? What is it? Because oftentimes it's a fear or a desire to avoid a pain point that's driving us towards those things. And it's also what will keep us from those things, because that it keeps us in that loop and connected to that thing we don't like. So if you're somebody who doesn't like to be in the body and you want access to greater power, wisdom, you got to get in it. You know, it was a coping mechanism. And I really struggled with this. I've had to work on grounding more and more. There are things that I've had to put into my daily routine to make sure that I am checking in and grounding and connecting, because it's really easy for me to go up. It's very difficult for me to connect in, but I'm only running half my power when I do that.
Of course. I mean, and you're doing this all the time. I mean, I'm guessing this is your full-time job.
Yes.
So it must be very difficult then, you know, to, you know, for some of us, you know, some of us dip into this and then we've got our 9-to-5 job doing something else. I don't, in one sense, but for some of us that's the case, and that's a kind of balance there sometimes. So for you doing this work, you've had the hardest lessons, because anyone that's going to get into this work is accelerated in their growth automatically. And also you also then got to learn this groundedness, as you've explained there. It's not easy, is it? You've not gone and chosen the most easiest path.
I don't think anybody chooses an easy path, you know. It just is the one that I felt called to do. I think in some ways it would have been harder for me to do something else that I didn't like, which people also get stuck in that trap. So for me, it was just kind of a natural evolution. If you had asked me 25 years ago if this is what I would have been doing, I would have like, you're crazy. But it is what I'm supposed to do. I'm very clear on that. And I think there are lots of ways that we all serve. Sometimes, again, we think that, oh, in order for me to make an impact, I've got to be doing this as a business, or I've got to be, you know, I've got to hang my shingle as a healer. And it's not about what we do. It's the energy that we carry into everything that we do that matters. It's our state of being that's so important. And I think when we understand that, life gets a lot easier. And then the things that allow us to be of the greatest service start to unfold. It starts to become clear, that path and what we want to do.
And what is that energy that we can bring into any job? So as you say, it's not, you know, to be spiritual is not to do, as you say, even teaching information. It could just be to be an accountant. But what energy are you referring to there to bring into that any
love.
Present moment?
Really, it's love. It's being as unconditional as you can be, letting go of your judgments. You know, I think also we think that our emotions are a byproduct of what we experience in the world. And really, the guides teach that emotions come first. They're frequencies, just like thoughts are. And what you pulse out, you're going to get back. So if you start with the frequency of anger and you're pulsing that out, you're going to get frequencies in physical form that match that. So you're going to get people who are angry coming into your presence. But if you are able to imagine what love feels like, or joy, or happiness, or lightness of being, or connection, whatever it is you want to experience, as you're pulsing that out, your reality begins to reflect that. You'll start encountering people who are in a better space, or they may need to be in your presence of holding that energy to help lift them. So that's the other point here that I want to make, that we don't have to wait for the collective to wake up in order for us to be happy. I think that's another trap that many times we all fall into, that we think, well, you know, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and, you know, it's just the energy's awful out there. So how can I be happy? It's never going to work out. we have to carry that energy forward, and that's what transforms the world. So you have to embody what you want to see first.
Right, so that's okay. We're getting into law of attraction here. We'll get back to what we were just talking about as well. But let's go down there. That's a great route to go down, right? Everyone loves the law of attraction. In it, your teaching's a little bit different, but it's the same stuff. So yeah, what you're saying is the reality you want to see in the world, take the action to see that reality. So as you said there, if the world's if there's a lot of suffering or a lot of pain in the world, or wars or whatever it is, that doesn't have to be your reality. You can create the reality you want to create, and that's not ignoring the suffering of others, is it?
No, it doesn't mean that the collective isn't experiencing that. It doesn't mean that you have to suffer in your day-to-day reality. That you can experience joy and help uplift someone who is going through a state of suffering. You can help to improve their condition by being the living example, to help lift them, to be of support to them. But for you to just stay in that place of suffering isn't really going to help anybody in the long run. You know, it's a valid place to be. You can stay there. It's a valid experience, but it's not really elevating you through the game.
Right. So yeah, we do create our reality then, don't we? We create our reality. So how do what if we just want to experience happiness? I mean, do we just have to be happy?
Well, the guys always talk about feeling it, imagine it. Imagine what it would feel like to be happy. So if we say, I'm happy, there may be a part of us in the background going, yeah, that's just not true. And then if we can imagine what it would feel like, because we've experienced it at some point. It might have been a while since we experienced that, but if we can imagine it, the ego doesn't get triggered in the same way, and we can start to align with that frequency. We can start to resonate with it and start to pulse it out, and it will help to lift us so that we have more of those experiences. And that's kind of a simplified way of saying it, but there are a few more things in there. But it's also important to acknowledge those small moments where you experience it throughout your day, because that's going to help you to experience more of it.
And then thank you for that. And then if there's a person, or there's like the documentary that I'm doing, but it could be a relationship. Relationships are a big thing, but if there's something you want to attract into your life, and you think it's that person, or it's that documentary, or it's whatever it may be, or it's this amount of money, you need to, I guess you need to say, do you say I am that? Is that a way to come from I am that, but then let go of it?
Well, the guides put it in a slightly different way. They suggest you look at what does that represent to you. So if you're asking for money, what does money really represent to you? Is it freedom? Is it flexibility? Is it peace? And then focus on embodying those frequencies and let go of the form that it comes in. You can think about the form if you want. You can envision that, but don't be attached to it, because the universe may bring it back to you in a way that's bigger and better than you ever thought it could be with that little form. So the universe wants to create in the most economical and expeditious way possible. So if you're locked into the form, you might miss it. The guides say it's like having a gift that you've asked for wrapped 50 different ways, and you've got it in your mind that it's in a blue box with a red bow, and that's the 49th box. So the universe brings you 48 other ways to have the gift, but you are so focused on the form that you miss it. If you focus on frequency, then you recognize, you say, you know what, this feels really great. This feels like what I've asked for. It's got joy, I've got peace, I've got freedom. It's not at all what I thought it was going to look like, but I want that. So they always try to get you to go back to look to see what exactly it represents, and then where in other areas of your life are you not allowing that energy to come in. So maybe it's freedom that you're looking for with money, but where are you not allowing yourself to be free to express your creativity or your opinion? You're not voicing your thoughts or your feelings. So sometimes what we'll do is look to heal it in another area because it's easier in that area. But once we work to release any resistance we have to allowing that frequency to come in, it wipes it out anywhere in the entire field that we're holding that resistance. So then it can start to come in the areas that you want it.
Okay, so you've got to clean, you know, that's a good point. You've got to clean up your space, and that happens automatically by just flowing and allowing something bigger to come in. Something as almost as other people have said on the show, your oversoul is in charge sometimes, and it's allowing that bigger part to come through. Something's going to come through that's more amazing than you could have envisaged, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to ask for it to begin with. You've got to know what it is you wish to attract in your life.
Yes.
I mean, I use the words there. I am already that. So I am already doing my documentary. I'm just using me as an example here. You know, I am already with that person, even though you may not be, right? But then again, that's not really what we're saying, is it? I guess what I'm saying, how do you ask for it and then let go? Do you know what I mean?
Well, you can ask for it. You can say, if you want the documentary, I would love to do this body of work that allows for growth of the mass populace, or whatever it represents to you. And then you can see it in your mind and then let it go. In terms of your attachment, whether it shows up or it doesn't show up. Okay. And I think for some people, if they really look at it, there are lots of attachments that, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to survive? You know, what am I going to do otherwise? My self-worth is tied up into this. So you have to kind of pay attention to those things as well, because those attachments will keep you from achieving that thing that you want. In order to get what you want, you have to be in the same vibrational range as what you've asked for. So that thing may be quite high, but you've got all these attachments that are dropping you out of resonance. So what comes back to you are all these things that need to be cleaned up. And I think a lot of people think, well, this law of attraction thing doesn't work, or I'm not getting what I want. But you're getting what you need in order to get what you want.
Yeah, so, that's so true. And everything that comes to you, see it as a lesson. When you say, oh, you know, I must have attracted this accident in my life. Oh, you know, I've attracted this negativity. Actually, turn that around and say, look at the lesson it's given you. You've attracted It's a beautiful lesson that your soul needed to get you to the next place where your next evolutionary part, whatever that is, that next job or whatever. I don't know. Okay. Totally agree with you there. Letting go. But sometimes as well, do you think you have to be brave in, you know, that things are going to show up, and sometimes you may have to take a chance that's, you know, pretty scary, but you've just got to go past the fears sometimes?
I think so. You know, you never really know what's coming. That's the illusion that we carry, is that we have control at the ego level. We don't. Right. And I think when we start to let go of that and we trust in the moment and trust that, you know, if what I'm asking for doesn't turn out, I trust in myself to find a way to work through it. And when we learn to trust in our own ability to navigate any situation, I'll deal with it. You know, it hasn't killed us so far. We're still here. So we've always found some way through the situation. And when we trust in ourselves and trust in the universe and let go of that need to mentally control and know how things are going to work out, life gets so much easier. We don't struggle.
Yes, I really,
It's exhausting.
Yeah. It is. It is, and sometimes you can fall in love with situations, people, things that you're trying to do. You can be deeply in love with them, and yet you've just got to let go. You've got to let go with love. Yeah. Well, look, that's beautiful. We've covered law of attraction there. I really appreciate that. I think that was important just to get that out for some people watching this or listening to this in this present moment right now. Just going back to the collective group you're with as well. You know, we said the words in this interview. I think you did some with maybe you did, but I think you did. Not giving your power away. Yeah. And, you know, if the beings coming through you were going to, you know, for example, if I said, well, what's on my bed right now next to me? Yeah. Or, you know, I want to know the lottery results, or, you know, give me this scientific formula. I don't think it comes. I think there's some things that we're not going to get answers to. But purely because if all these simple questions like that could be, well, not simple, but questions like that could be answered, people would be bowing down to you and these beings would almost seem like the gods, and their people would be giving their power away. So when people say, well, why can't we answer some of these deeper crazy questions, I think to myself, well, it's not meant to be like that. It's giving power away to answer such questions as that.
And they also say, well, how does that serve you? How does that teach you? Because especially with guys that just stand in our power and getting lost in the proof. Somebody could give you proof, and 5 minutes later you could be back in doubt. So you can get confirmation after confirmation after confirmation, and really that's something that has to come from within. So I'm not so interested in proving anything to you, because I can't. There's no point in me doing it. You've got to find that, does this resonate, is my truth or not? And that's part of the reason they don't go there. But I think also what the point that you made is equally valid, that then we would put them on the pedestal. And They're very clear about, if something we say doesn't resonate with you, let it go.
Yes.
I had an experience with another channeler very early on. I think I've been channeling for maybe a year. And I was with some friends, and we had met this woman who channeled lower Pleiadians. I think they were fifth dimensional. And they put me through this exercise, and I followed the instructions. I didn't really ask much about it. And they said, well, why did you do that? Just because we told you to? And I felt so manipulated. I was furious. But they taught me a very valuable lesson. I don't like to learn that way, and the guides do not teach that way, but they taught me discernment, to check in with myself, to see, one, why am I doing this? Just because you told me to? And, does this resonate? Is this my truth? It might be yours, but it might not be mine. From your ninth dimensional perspective, or whatever dimension you're in, that might be your version, but it's not my version. And that's another thing that the guides have spent a lot of time discussing with me, is the notion of time and multiple realities, and that every now moment is built upon an agreed upon set of circumstances that the collective chooses, and then your own personal stories, your frequencies. So it's all frequency based. So if you're standing in the fifth dimension, you're going to have a different frequency than I'm going to have down here. And so my perspective is just as equally valid as yours. We're both source energy. So is it going to work with the game that I want to play?
No, beautifully put, and we'll get into 5D dimensional existence into just very shortly as well, seeing as you mentioned that. Discernment, I absolutely. I mean, I'll say it now. I mean, this is my truth, but I've covered interviews like the Billy Meyer case, where these Pleiadians have come along and it's the only truth, and they've given their spiritual truth to Billy Meyer, and anyone else bringing through information, especially channelers, is not valid, not to listen to it. I mean, so controlling of statements, and I'm personifying words here completely, right? But that's what it basically comes down to. Yeah. And people go for this stuff as well, and it's like, well, how loving is that? Very fear-based, isn't it?
It is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm not trying to.
No,
yeah.
It's very true though, because a lot of people, when they hear the Pleiades, they either go there or they go to Barbara Marciniak. Billy Meyer's a Barbara Marciniak, so it's one or the other. And there is a big universe. There are lots of beings and lots of perspectives. There isn't an absolute truth. If we look at an incident that's in the past, if we could go back and observe the moment, we'd find that it probably doesn't look anything at all like we remember it to be. It's just a version of the story that we've told ourselves. And the guides say it's the same thing with what we call history. It's just the version that we're choosing to align with. And the same thing when you get into the bigger galactic history. So people get very, very locked into, I need a detailed linear history of what transpired. And they say it just doesn't work that way. The linear perspective is a 3D construct. So, there are lots of versions, and you just have to figure out if the version that you're experiencing now is in resonance with you now. It might not be 15 minutes from now or 15 years from now, because you've changed what you're in resonance with. You can see, if you were to go back and look at that experience from the past, you'd see it from a different angle. You'd say, oh, I forgot that this thing happened. And that was an important key because I was upset because I didn't think that happened. I didn't think somebody told me this, that they loved me or they were sorry, but they actually did. I just didn't hear it. So then if we can take that in, we're standing in a different frequency. So our reality is different. What we see, what we experience in the world, because that's all just a filter. Our beliefs filter what we can see.
Yes, yes. And do you think, okay, so if time is not linear, when we cross over, it doesn't seem to be at all from what people even brought through on near-death experiences. It's completely the opposite to it. It's non-linear. So maybe we're out there in non-time having some consciousness part of ourselves having an experience as a being somewhere else in some other dimension, Pleiadian as well. So when we say that, some people say that they've been a Pleiadian in a past life, maybe it's not a past life, maybe it's a life that's happening right now, but we just perceive it as being past.
Yeah, it's concurrent, so it's going on now. And the guides like to say you're not really from any star system. That's just another level of the game. It's just another label that we like to put on there. Oh, I'm Pleiadian. Oh, I'm Sirian.
Good point.
So you know your source. And they keep taking us up to that level so that we become empowered, so that we don't just shift to another identification, another partitioning off. It's a bigger field, but it's still cutting ourselves off from who we truly are, which is source energy. But at different times, we'll align with those different systems, and we'll be like, oh, the Pleiades over here. I feel like there's something there. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, you feel really drawn to the Andromedans. And so you start getting more information there. It's just the lessons and the wisdom that system acquired that you are embodying or working right now. So you hold that as the lessons.
Okay, we've just lost you a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. You're back. Sorry. Yeah, I'll take that out. That's fine. That's fine. Okay, a bit of a tough question here. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, right? I'm really not. It's just this has come. People, others in interviews have this has come to me, and it's like, well, I don't know really how to answer this, but yeah, some channelers that I've mixed with, one in particular has said that through his connections, the group that he's connected to are very unsure sometimes of taking teachings from beings that have never lived a human life before. Yeah, so in respects to ET or Pleiadian or whatever it may be, how would you answer that, do you think?
Well, for me, there is an aspect of me that is part of the collective that I work with. So in a sense, I am their human experience. It's kind of a loop on itself. That's but again, cool. I think this goes back to the truth of, does this resonate with me? Yes or no? I think it's as simple as that. If it doesn't, then let it go. Does this serve me in the moment? Is it helping me to grow in the moment? How do I feel when I experience this? Am I working just for my own personal benefit, or am I working for the expansion of myself and then of service to others? So I think when I'm clear about the information and how I'm utilizing it, it doesn't really matter the source that it comes from.
Absolutely. And that was actually that kind of question was served up from the guys that work through another channel. So all these guides and all these different levels of frequency, they've all got their own truth. There is no one set truth in a sense. They're all evolving themselves. Even though they're highly evolved in some sense, they're still working with us to even evolve themselves even higher, and ourselves. So it's this, it's not the picture you think it is sometimes. It's an expanding picture of truth. Some people say, well, there's only one truth. There are universal truths, that's it. There's not multiple truths. But it seems to be, I always say, well, when you cross over, it seems to be you take your truth with you. I mean, that's from the near-death experiences as well. They say the same thing.
Well, the guides will say, there are certain universal constructs, if you want to call those truths, laws, universal laws. The way that the universe is structured so that we can all play in this game. There has to be, if you're playing basketball, there are rules for basketball or soccer or football. There are certain things that we all have to agree on to play the game. And then, the only truth is really that source is all there is. Love is all there is. And beyond that, there are variations in the perspective of what we say is truth and what is real. Because every single possibility exists, and you can go and experience any one of them. So to say that there's an absolute truth, I think the only absolute is that source is all there is.
Love. Yeah. Love. Yeah. That's I would well, I think most people watching this could resonate with that love is the only truth. Something we forget sometimes, to be loving towards ourselves and others, and that is the only truth when we're having this experience right now. But so obviously this is pretty much a 3D experience that we're having, but are we though already living a 5D dimensional existence, maybe unbeknown to us, and what would that be?
The guides say we're actually in the fourth dimension, and the fourth dimension, or if you want to call it density, it's a transitory zone, because the 3D is so different than any of the other dimensions. We needed an entire dimension to shift through it. So in 3D and 5D, there are fixed rules to the game. In 4D, you can apply either 3D or 5D rules onto the matrix. So there may be moments where we're holding the thoughts and the beliefs that we're still in physical reality, that we're still separate, and so we experience it the same way that we would 3D. But we can also have those moments where we heart center ourselves, we get connected, and once we're connected, we're resonating in the heart. That's when we start to have a fifth dimensional experience. The difficulty is that we don't maintain it, because when we open up to that space and those higher frequencies, in order to maintain it, we have to release all of those lower thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we've been holding on to in our field that keep us out of that matching resonance that we talked about earlier. And those things start to vibrate in order to entrain, and they get our attention, and we fall out of resonance and we go back into that 3D perspective. So I definitely think there are moments in which we have those 5D experiences where we feel completely connected. Sometimes we might step out of time. We might find that we leave the house and we think, I only have 15 minutes to get there. There's no way I'm going to get there on time. And yet somehow we do, because we step outside of time. We're just present in the moment, and we connect with that moment, which that time exists. We don't go through a linear perceived process. So I have it. We just aren't having it on a consistent basis. And that's what happens as we shift into 5D. It's a consistent state. We're constantly aware of where we're vibrating.
Yes, absolutely. And I really appreciate the time you're giving us right now as well. We're 47 minutes into this. And I just want to mention as well, obviously you do private readings. And what would be the difference between, for yourself, a channeled reading with yourself versus sort of maybe even a mediumistic psychic reading?
Well, I think specifically with the work that I do with the guides, it's really about looking at your patterns and programs and what is it that you want to create in your life, and then helping you to get there, as opposed to saying, oh, this is going to happen to you in 3 months, or, this happened necessarily in a past life. Although they do go there. They do talk about past lives because they can amplify what's going on in the now moment. So it's really about helping you to explore what it is you want to create and what's keeping you from it, as opposed to telling you what to do. Because they'll say, if we tell you what to do, where are you going to be in a week after you've done that thing? You're back at zero. So they want to help empower us and teach us. They want to give us the tools. So what I'm finding is in some ways we're doing fewer and fewer private sessions, and they're teaching more the foundation for people to understand this is how your reality is created. We created the process, which goes into deep detail about how you manifest reality. But it's really very simple. I think sometimes, when we talk about this ascension process, we think it's really complicated. And there are only 2 things we have to do. They say you have to ground and connect to your body so you can complete your energetic connection, and so that you can be present, so that you have an awareness, you have your discernment, and then to be present in the moment, which means to be heart-centered, which means to be in a state of love. If you're doing that, they say everything else takes care of itself. So you have clarity about what you need to do, what actions you need to take, where you need to go. And we want to make it really complex. The emotions and the thoughts, the crazy thoughts that go through our head are what make it complicated, but the actual actions are actually very, very simple.
Yes, 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 yes. It's not complicated, is it? That's right.
Mm-mm.
That's so true. Yeah, there was a question that's popping out of my mind right now, and I'm like, oh, but that was it. Yes. Well, I've got someone coming on soon to talk about the holographic universe. They've just done a new book on it. I mean, does that go against anything that you've brought through as well? That maybe this is a holographic? No. Okay.
No,
Cool,
that's
cool.
exactly what they say. That's exactly
Is it
what
right?
they say.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So we live in a holographic universe. Wow. Hard to get your head around sometimes, isn't it? That we are creating our reality even to that point as well. Very cool stuff. I know we talked about. Well, you did mention maybe the P's will come through, and I don't know. Maybe we could ask them one question. I don't want to put you on the, to force that to happen. No, okay,
Me too.
okay, you're cool. You're cool with that. Okay, that's cool. Well, I'd like to ask them, about the times that we live in now. Where, I mean, I guess maybe where we are now in this crossroads in humanity isn't that big as when what happened to Atlantis and stuff like that, maybe, right? But to us, it seems pretty big. That there's some big shifts going on right now. To us, it seems that way.
So let me get out of the way and let them come in. Ah, yes, hello, dear. So this is the Ninth Dimensional Pleiadian Collective, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have the opportunity to connect with you. So what a wonderful question. We would say what you're experiencing now is actually bigger than what happened in Atlantis. You can think of Atlantis as kind of a training ground for what you're going through right now. It prepared you. It gave you an opportunity to shift your awareness. At that time frame, the awareness was very much falling back on a sense of personal progress as opposed to and personal power as opposed to your progress that could also benefit the whole. And that's really the only difference between light and dark. One is working from a perspective of separation, and the other has awareness of yourself as a perceived being separation, but yet you are part of an entire collective. And this is a very, very exciting time because we are very curious about what you're going to create. It's a nexus point of lots of, if you want to call them timelines. There's a lot of energy coming in, and as you go through this awakening, it has a massive ripple effect through the entire universe as you go through this process, because Earth is a grand experiment. There is genetic material from thousands of worlds that has been deposited, and along with that genetic material are all of the emotional experiences, all of the lessons from those civilizations. Sometimes those lessons went well, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes the process of integration was very difficult. And when we speak of integration, we mean letting go of judgment, that you are polarized to either a sense of positive and negative. And the middle point is source's perspective. It is the totality. It's not side A or side B of a coin. It's understanding that the coin is a whole. It's one. And so when you go through the process of integration, you don't see yourself as side A or side B. You see yourself as the coin. And other civilizations failed. They had a very difficult time integrating, letting go of issues like competition, acceptance, abandonment, safety, security, control, and there are a number of other issues. So here, as you are healing those issues within yourself, so you're letting go of your sense of competition. Competition is a perspective of a finite universe, that there are a finite amount of resources. And you are able to let go of that to see that the universe is an infinite place and all may thrive. When you enter into that perspective, that ripples out, including to those time frames that might have been the past, all right? 10,000 years ago in the Arcturus system, or 10,000 years ago in the Orion system, or a million years ago. It ripples out because time doesn't exist. And those beings can then learn from your experience. It's like telling someone how to bake a cake. You give them a recipe, and then they can create their variation. They can make a chocolate cake, or a strawberry cake or whatever they want, but they have a place to start, because if you don't have a basic recipe, it's very, very, very difficult. And so as you go through this process and you learn to access a deep amount of compassion through it, that amplifies the energy. It makes it stronger. And when the signal's stronger, it makes it easier for the universe to pick up and resonate with the frequency. And again, you have this perception of time as being linear, and you think the past is past, it's done, but it's not. It is concurrent. It's going on now. So that actually affords the universe an entire brand new opportunity to experience reality at a whole nother level. You could think about it going through a game with a certain set of awareness, and then the next level of your game, you have added tools, you have added information to go through the same maze, and it's going to be a different experience with that added information. So this is how the universe learns and grows from your experience. You want to think of yourselves as being very small and not having much power, but actually you're quite powerful and quite amazing creators. You are creating all of your reality right now. What you allow yourselves to perceive is simply based on the beliefs that you're holding, but there is a tremendous amount of love, support, generosity, unconditional energy that's available to you when you start to embody that with yourself, that you are loving and kind and generous to yourself first, and then the actions will ripple out to others as well. All right, so it's a very long-winded answer to your question. We hope we answered it.
No, you did. That's very beautiful, and I'm very much looking forward to, I say, meeting you guys in person, but energetically being in the same room as you. That's what I'm trying to say. Would you have any message to the audience?
Well, the next 6 months is going to be about coherence. When you reach your solstice points, there is information that comes from your sun. The sun is like a metronome that keeps the entire solar system moving forward and growing, and it kind of shares lessons with you. And the next 6 months is really about coherence. Coherence is about seeing yourself as part of the whole, but also about harmony and balance. And what we would say for you right now is that you are also going to be tasked with walking your authentic path, speaking your truth. Even if you think that others may not understand it, that's all right. It is not your job to determine when someone else is ready for information or not. It's your job to express your version of the truth. Others may need to hear it a few times, and perhaps you're the first time they've heard it. They might not grab onto it right away, but you'll feel better by expressing your authenticity, and they will grow as you are more authentic and holding more of your light. The other thing that we would say here is that many of you feel stuck right now because you are trying to look around for a form that doesn't really exist yet. You are creating lots of new avenues and pathways for you to live your lives, institutions that you'll have on your planet. And if you're looking to the old model feels flat, and it's not going to excite you, and you're going to feel very stuck because you're not drawn to those old models. So you've got to start working with the frequencies that you want to embody. You're going to have to start working more and more with feminine energy in balance with the masculine, which means getting quiet, going inside, connecting with your heart center, thinking of something that makes you smile is the fastest way to do that. And once you're in that space, you will get those intuitive hits, those inspired thoughts. That creativity will start to flow that will then inform you as to which actions to take. You can't just have one or the other, but you have to work in balance with both, and that's what you're being tasked with over the course of the next 6 months. And it may seem a bit scary to follow something that you feel is an intuition, but what you'll find is that it feels very different than just your imagination when you have that sense of connection. It feels very rich, it feels very full, and your imagination feels very flat. And the more you work with this, you will notice the difference, and you take this leap, as you were talking about earlier, you take this leap of faith in that action step. What you will find is that it will get reinforced, that you'll see, oh, that actually worked out really well. That was really easy. And you'll say, it's easier for me to go inside now and trust in that. And that will build on itself. And you will find that this is a much easier way of being as opposed to trying to figure everything out mentally and not going inside to check first. All right. So that would be our advice for you all.
Well, much love to you. Thank you so much for coming through right now. We very much appreciated the advice.
It's a true pleasure. Feel free to connect with us directly. You don't need Wendy. Put yourself in your heart center, ask your question and listen, and we will be watching and waiting and sending many well wishes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for that, and that's that was a beautiful ending as well. That they will come through others as well. Should they? Yes. And you seem very much a conscious channeler as well.
It is. It's a bit like a lucid dream for me. So right. I'm aware in the moment, but in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I'll just have a vague sense, and then I really have to think hard about what they talked about.
Yes. No, that was really beautiful. I mean, I was going to ask a question about myself there, but I thought, you know what? No, I'm cool. I'm cool. Let's that message was for me as much as was for everyone else. So that's beautiful. What would you say?
You're welcome to.
Oh gosh. Okay then. Well, would they have a message for me at all, which may be a message for everyone? Hopefully.
What would you like to know about specifically? Because there are so many things we can tell you. Here's a secret we want to share with you all. That if you want information, there is a fine art to asking for it. You'll find that especially with higher information, you have to ask for it. To just give you random information doesn't always serve you. And we don't want to interfere with your growth. When you say, I want to know about this, it makes it much easier for all of us on the other side to give you information because we know you're ready for it. So oftentimes higher knowledge and wisdom has to be sought. It cannot just be given. So what specifically would you like to know about? And here's the other piece here, that subconsciously there is something that you want to know. But it's like saying, I want something sweet, and you go and have a cookie and you say, that wasn't it. I want ice cream. Yes. So it's again, getting you to check in with yourself. Okay. If we want to self-empower you, check in. What do I really want?
Okay, really random question then, as you do. Okay. I channel a group called The One, and is there any message that will come through for me asking that question? Is this a group that I'm meant to be working with? Is this a group that others can work with? And I'm not really, this is not a specific question, is it? But yeah, I channel The One, and I'm sure other people have groups that they channel as well. Has your collective group heard of The One?
We can find their frequency through you. They're not a group specifically that we've sat down to work with, but they're here, they're present, so we're having a nice conversation on this side. So part of what you're doing right now, you're bringing in information. They're not the only group that you're going to end up working with, but they are supporting you right now with building a foundation for yourself. They're giving you a body of knowledge and information as an operating system. You will find that there are other beings. There are some beings from Orion that you will pull in regards to specific healing modalities that you will incorporate for yourself and use for others if you choose. But oftentimes, understand when your stellar family shows up, and we say stellar family, understand that really all of us in your galaxy are part of your stellar family. It's not that just one group is your stellar family and that's it, but you've got different levels to that. It would be like your nuclear family and then your aunts, uncles, cousins, and so on and so forth. But there will be others that you will pull in, but sometimes before you can access some of the energy from your stellar family, there are certain patterns that have to be integrated first to a certain degree. Orion is one of those systems that it was the darkest, heaviest system in your galaxy. It makes what's going on here look like child's play. It was heavily oppressed. Even your thoughts were monitored in that system. So there has to be a certain level of integration around control and authority in order for you to start to access that energy, because otherwise those patterns get triggered very, very quickly, and most of you will shut down because those are core issues for you. So as you are going through your process with the one, they're going to help you to create a stable foundation, and then you will start inviting more what we would say is galactic energy in, because that is part of your contract, is to work with galactic energy as well. There are some who work with angelic, some who work with the departed, but for you, it's working with galactic energy. As far as others connecting with this group, by all means, they're happy, they're open to connect with the group. Does it mean they're going to share the exact same information with you? No, they will share different energies, different information, and they may feel slightly different because they are a collective. And so they're different. Well, this point of focus, like a different representative will show up from the group that will work with that individual, but it's still the group energy. Because remember, as Wendy was describing, that even in the ninth dimension, we can perceive ourselves as an individuated consciousness and also the collective. So really there are about 2,500 beings in this collective. So there is a handful of us that will take point to be the representative as a connection for Wendy, because it's very difficult for you all to think about connecting with 2,500 minds or even larger groups. It's overwhelming. At the beginning, we simply said, call us Mrs. P, because even thinking of 2,500 was a big leap. So to think of one persona was easier. And so it will be with those who will actually work with the one as well. There will be different aspects of the collective that will step forward to work with them. So they're happy and honored, as are we, to work with any of you. You simply need to ask.
That's beautiful, and that would actually resonate so truthfully. That was because I had a UFO experience when I was younger, and I'm pretty sure it was Pleiadian. It's some sort of Pleiadian or some sort of collective group, but more than the one, it was some sort of ET group. Of course, it was because it was a UFO experience. But yeah, that thank you for that. Which I never said to Wendy. Thank you very much.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
Blessings to you. Yeah, there you go. That made so much sense there when that came through. I had a UFO experience when I was younger. My whole family did, and we don't talk about it much because we're not able to put it into any reference. Well, my parents aren't, nor is my other family. But as real as you are sat there on Skype, it was there in the sky, and
wow.
that's what kind of got us into the paranormal a little bit more. As I got older, I always remember that experience, and it was just
a light, or I'm just curious.
No, it was a ship. To begin with, it was a ship. I remember going outside, and all time had stood still. This is when I was a kid. Time had stood still. It was just there. There was no one else outside. And the only memories I've got of later on in the evening, there were multiple ships. And it sounds, I mean, to some people this will be like, come on, Kev, but it's just true as what we're doing now with the channeling. I channel as well. So I can never go back to that memory, but I know it happened.
Mm-hmm. I think it's hard because sometimes even we see it and it's like, I still can't believe, did that really happen? Especially if you're by yourself. If there's people with you, you can say, hey, did you see this? And even still, there's this sense of disbelief. And I love it because people always say, I want to see ETs. I want them here. And the guides always say, it's one thing in theory. It's another when you've got a being standing right beside you. It shatters your perspective of reality, and you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So you have to be ready to do it. And I think that's why a lot of times we're not seeing that kind of thing. We might see a ship, and even that's a layer that's a little more removed that makes it easier for us to kind of adjust our perspective and do what we need to do to get into the space. But yeah,
well, that's a really good point. Let me just end it on this final point that there's people watching this who will be like, yeah, well, when's the disclosure going to be? Just as you said there, we are not ready for disclosure for that very point, that the shattering of reality. It's almost like, oh, the gods have arrived. We'd be giving our power over to them if they were to come en masse to say they was here, being spiritually consciously advanced. Most of them, they're not going to do that. It's giving away our power.
It's still too much. We're still carrying too much fear. And even for myself, I've had physical experiences, and I had beings show up one night in my room, and I was shocked how much fear I had it still left in my body.
Right.
Because I just wasn't expecting it. And
Yes.
they weren't, I had invited them in, but
Yes.
not at 3 o'clock in the morning in a pit.
Right. Right.
And they were very confused. They were very kind. They stepped back, but I didn't realize how much fear I still had in my body, even though I'm connecting with them. I know this to be true. There's still something very primal that happens to us that we still have to work through. And disclosure is happening, but it's happening in a way that is gentle. And beings who really have our best interest at heart don't want to do anything that's going to elicit more fear. That's counterproductive. And I just want to make this point too. If you're ever listening to somebody's information, whether it's the Pleiadians, my information with my group, or anybody that you hear, and it elicits a tremendous amount of fear, then let it go. Because really higher beings, they might trigger something a little that you don't like, but they're never going to give you information that is going to really put you into a tremendous fearful state, because they can see that before they give the information. So if you're connecting, you're channeling for yourself, and you experience that, then go back, just disconnect, thank that being for being there, recenter, and ask for a higher being to bring through the information, a higher perspective. Yeah.
Well, that's a good point, because sometimes when we open to channel, we are opening a door. Now, I don't believe in any negative things that are gonna, start smashing bottles and, cutting our wrists with, right? As one documentary showed on one person's experience, which I thought it was a Christian-based documentary, so what do you expect? But I think there are more lower level stuff that you can bring through, masquerading as though it's higher level. But I think, that just, as you say, if you're asking for the highest to come through, well, that's what's going to come through, the highest that you're able to vibrate with at this present moment.
Right.
Yeah.
And it teaches us, again, discernment. Everything we have that we experience at a human to human level, we play out interdimensionally. So as we start to clean it up here, we don't draw in those same kinds of beings who are going to elicit that same kind of fear response in us.
Exactly. And your website is as well?
higherfrequencies.net.
Wonderful. Okay, well, that website has been coming up throughout this interview as well. And I just want to say, please, people do go check out Wendy's website, and there's lots of information on how to get in contact, and events that you're doing as well. And I believe, is your book on there as well? It
is. It's in, I think, 7 different languages. So I don't think we have them all up there. I think there's a Chinese version and a Czech version. There's some that I haven't added in there yet, but check your local Amazon.
We'll link that into the description as well, and your book's been coming up on the screen throughout this interview as well, so people would have been able to see the cover of it, and there'll be the links below. Wendy, we've gone well over time, and I just want to say thank you so much for giving us your time today, and it's just been beautiful to have you on, and I really respect the work you're doing, and thank you for what you're doing out there as well.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way, so it really is a pleasure. Really it is.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on our past and upcoming guests by going to themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe. Hi, I'm Kevin Moore, host of The More Show, and it's my passion to help you live your best life now. You might be looking to find answers on love, connecting with your life's purpose, reuniting with a loved one on the other side, discovering your past lives, or just helping you make sense, finding your direction now. So The More Show has collaborated with the most gifted readers around the world to form The More Show Psychics. Now, my readers have a large range of skills to choose from to be of service to you, and all my psychics are interviewed to show transparency, with each interview available on the website. So call now, dialing the numbers on the screen to speak to my operators 24/7, or go to tmspsychics.com to choose a reader or book online. The More Show Psychics, helping you transform your present moment into the most loving and happiest it can be. Now, I also offer a full money back guarantee, so what have you got to lose? Empower your life now.